Hey everybody, I just wanted to talk briefly about what's going on. I really wanted to make a video connecting what scientists and Stanford scientists call the sixth major extinction. I really want to reiterate, I don't think we're in the sixth major extinction. I think, it's obvious we're going through an extinction. Anybody who's following the die-offs. And the surface temperatures of the ocean, and anybody who's following any of that, especially the great bird die-off, the migratory birds. First it was the seabirds, and now in the last 2 years it's affected the Southwest and the migratory birds. Why migratory birds? Well, migratory birds require more food, period. They also spend a lot more time in direct sunlight, flying. The higher you fly, the more radiation you get. So with the water drying up, the food drying up, and the radiation from the sky increasing, and I've showed you over and over again, and I'll see if I can pull them up. The background X-rays going up 100-fold since 2018. In 2003, we were in solar maximum. It was the second peak of the solar max. You see the blue line, which is high energy X-rays. The blue line, high energy X-rays, are X-rays that measure from 0.1 to 0.8 nanometers, which is almost gamma radiation. So these are the most powerful of the X-rays that we measure. That's the dark blue line. We see at the very bottom a factor of 10 to the minus 9 watts per meter squared, and we see where the baseline is up to the 10 to the minus 8 meters squared, watts per meter squared, So the C flares, the actual spikes, are solar flares. We see C flares up into the C range, usually, but one into the M range. But most of the solar flares, when they did spike, they spiked up from 10 to the minus 9 to 10 to the minus 6, 10 to the minus 5 in terms of watts per meter squared. So let's go forward. 2011, we went to another solar max. This is the onset of the 2011 solar max, and this is when we broke 70,000 heat records. And all kinds of bizarre things were happening. If you remember the street lights melting in Oklahoma, and the roads melting, and it was quite freaky. Millions and millions of turkeys and chickens. Our corn crop, it was just horrendous, 2011. But in terms of high energy X-rays, they were floating down, baseline at 10 to the minus 9 watts per meter squared, with a possible spike up to not even a B flare level, okay? So that was solar max, that's solar maximum. So fast forward now to 2018. There's no activity on the sun. It's solar minimum at its deepest solar minimum. And we see that the high energy X-rays and all the other X-rays are kind of flat. And they're all at a 10-fold increase from 2018 to 2019. 2019 is when we said we were going to pass this brown dwarf. And we had the largest magnetic shift. And what happened? Our baseline, just the background X-rays went up by a factor of 10, from 10 to the minus 8 power to 10 to the minus 9 power, 10 to the minus 8 watts per meter squared. Today, we have a 100-fold increase today in our high energy X-rays. 100-fold increase. Yes, not a double or a triple, 100-fold increase. That's a log scale, people. Each minus 9 minus 8 minus is a power of 10. So 10 times 10 is 100. So 10 to the minus 9 to 10 to the minus 7 is 100-fold increase. I mean, let me put this in perspective. The 2003 X-rays were spiking. They were spiking up to the C flare level. We saw one on the graph, M flare. Now our baseline is where the C flare level used to be. Are you getting my drift? And this is 60 seconds out of every minute, 60 minutes out of every hour, 24 hours of every day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. A constant C flare. Put this in perspective. You take your child to the dentist, and the dentist says, well, I can give your child a dental x-ray. That's just the regular one. Or I can do one that gives them 100 times more x-rays than they really need. 100-fold increase in that dental x-rays energy. How about it? Will you let me x-ray your kid with 100 times more powerful x-rays? Would you? No, that guy would be in jail. He would never practice again. But yet, this is what's coming off the sun. This is what's coming off the sun. And it should just freak people out. It should alarm people. You know, the sky puts out, if you have an X-ray telescope that sees in X-ray wavelengths, you point it at the sky and the whole sky glows. It's called the background X-ray glow. They finally figured out what causes it. It surprised a lot of people that half of it was being produced in our own solar system. Oh yeah, that's the Ulysses experiment that did that, but then there were other experiments. And they even know why. It was electron exchange. Electron exchange between two different sources of atomic nuclei. Cosmic rays. They call them cosmic rays. They're really not rays, they're particles. Cosmic particles, usually consisting of protons and hydrogen, and helium and alpha particles. Alpha particles are highly energetic helium and highly radioactive, by the way. We were trying to prove the source of the cosmic rays was in fact a failed star that came near our solar system. And as anything approaches the sun, it accelerates. So if it has a tidal influence, a magnetic influence, electrical influence, and a cosmic ray influence, which is a radiation influence, then as this thing gets closer, the faster it shall travel, and the faster it shall close. There will be acceleration to its speed. So it is no coincidence that all of the curves that you would expect to see increase if a brown dwarf came close to our solar system, particles, energy, heat, all of it shows up. We have an accelerated curve in the extreme ultraviolet. We have a pretty good curve in the neutrons. The surface temperatures spiked even higher. The methane spiking even higher. The extreme UV going higher. The ground temperatures going higher. The number of disasters going higher, higher and higher. Well, gee, I wonder why. So then, we look at what's happening with the magnetosphere. We had a lot of earthquakes, and in fact, we had one start with a 7-pointer and end with a 7-pointer. And all of you that watch the channel should have known that by the end of 10 to 14 days of the Jupiter alignment with the sun and Earth, that there would be a big quake at the beginning and end. Usually the end quake is bigger. So we started this alignment with a 7-pointer. And guess what? We finished with a 7-pointer. But yeah, so we go and look at what the magnetosphere is doing. And you see before you several images. I try to capture several of them. But you see a time where there's a lot of red and yellow around the solar system, around the Earth. This is Earth. And you see a very bright ring out on the right edge. And you see a tail stream that is bright red and yellow behind the Earth. The sun is off to the right. But look at the magnetosphere, though. That white line, it is expanded out to about 10. The graph on the bottom is Earth radii. That's the radius of Earth. So we're out to about 11 Earth radii. And our magnetosphere used to fluctuate between 10 and 16 Earth radii. It has been mainly compressed for several years now because of all of this stuff. But when you have all this energy, here's another. Look at all these extra rings, these radiation rings around Earth. That's a lot of energy in the rings in the solar system. Now this is what, at 10 Earth radii, 8 Earth radii, 9, 10 up to 15 Earth radii, but there's extra rings. What extra rings means extra radiation. If these extra particles were actual helium or hydrogen, protons or alpha particles, those are all grouped of, helium and hydrogen, isotopes, helium and hydrogen molecules and atoms. If that was the case, we would have the magnetosphere would be compressed and there would be not so much energy, but because they're electrons expand and repel one another. So that's how you know, just by looking at this magnetosphere, it's swelled up and it had extra rings. So you're like, well, there's extra particles, why isn't it compressing? Well, it's not compressing because these are electrons. So then when you look at the NOAA report and it says we don't have any protons, you got to wonder where the protons went, because that's where the electrons from the sun, they come from the protons. That's what makes them a proton. They lose that electron. That electron shows up here first. The protons show up here second. But it's not happening. We're filling up with electron after electron, energy all around the Earth, and there's no magnetosphere compressions. None. And just more and more energy, more and more energy, more and more energy. Then all of a sudden, wham, we have a compression. And look at the energy around Earth. There's none. All the yellow's gone, the red's gone, but look at the magnetosphere, compressed all the way down to geosynchronous orbit. So what would compress the magnetosphere? Well, the coronal hole stream, the electrons will get here first, and the particles will get here second. And that could do this. It could do this. But the thing is, you're not seeing any energy. And so coming off the sun, protons are more highly energetic than the interstellar medium, than the cloud of cosmic rays that we're swimming in. Anything coming off the sun has more energy. So here we have a compressed magnetosphere with no energy. Now here we have compressed magnetosphere with energy. So then you have to assume that now the sun is mixing some of its particles in waves that ripple in. But we're, high energy, low energy with compressed magnetosphere. So this tells me that since there's no CMEs and no coronal holes that can account for all of what you're seeing, then there has to be another explanation for such high energies and expansion accompanied by low energy and compression. And that is because there's a source of second wind that is cooler, right now cooler, than the sun's wind. But when we get downstream, directly downstream in another couple of months, those particles will be hot. You'll be having record melts in some parts of the world. You're going to have increased cardiac problems. A lot of people are going to still seem to go insane. And you're going to have crops that are stressed and the droughts that are aggravated. And it's all because of the downstream particles mixing with the sun's particles. Because now those are heated up. They've passed through the corona of the sun. They're ejected out the other side of the sun, high speed, and they create a lot of energy, more than what you're seeing now. Now remember I said there was an assault on our protein, that you should be stockpiling and hoarding protein powder. And then I made a video how like it's doubled in price. When somebody sent me this, called me a liar. This is you can get this off of Amazon. It's a protein supplement that's only like $7, $8 for a pound and a half. And generally a good mix of whey and plant protein, a pound and a half is usually $15 to $20. So I said the price is doubled to $40, $30 to $40. Well, no, I'm a liar. Look at this, $7 for a pound and a half. You know, you're a fraud. You're this, you're that. Blah 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 blah. Well, remember I told you that they're putting fillers and charging more for those fillers. Well, now this guy got competitive. He brought the price down to $8 for a pound and a half. Well, let's see what kind of fillers are in there. We have the whey protein concentrate, whey protein isolate, hydrolyzed whey protein. Now look at all that's in it. Those are, the first ingredients, protein. Maltodextrin, a carbohydrate. Cookie crumbs, a filler. Rice flour, a filler. Sugar, a filler. Tapioca starch, a filler. Palm oil, we won't call it a filler. Cocoa, a filler and flavoring. Cornstarch, a filler. Salt, chocolate liquor. That's interesting. Natural flavor, sodium bicarbonate, a filler. Soy lecithin, a filler. Sunflower creamer, a filler. Maltodextrin, a carbohydrate, a filler. Modified food starch, a filler. Mono and diglycerides, which are sugars. With citric acid, which is a preservative, but also a powder. Tricalcium phosphate, a powder. Natural and artificial flavors. Gee, I wonder what the artificial flavors are. Because they already got chocolate liquor in there. Then they have soy. Gum, a gum blend. Cellulose gum, that's fiber. Xanthan gum, that's fiber. Carrageenan, that's a thickener. Salt, acesulfame potassium, ascorbic acid, sucralose, zinc oxide, which keeps it from caking. So, you wonder why this protein powder is only $7, $8 for a pound and a half? That's because you're getting very little protein. And if you go look at the really high quality stuff right now with no fillers, especially organic, you're paying $40 for 20 pounds.